In the self-development space, there's often this unspoken idea that if we could just clear enough, heal enough, integrate enough, then the relationship we dream of will finally be possible. And sure, there's some truth in that, right? Doing the work to integrate our past, especially the painful parts, does open us to deeper love. It helps us access and accept and embrace connection in a new way, in a more potent and beautiful way. Yes, it does. But then what? Do our relationships become easy once we've faced our trauma? No, they don't. You will still struggle. You will still feel unworthy at times. You'll still get agitated. And what I think too often gets missed in the work of self-development and the ways we talk about growth is this. There is no destination. There's no moment where your life or your relationships stop needing your attention and your care and your presence. There's no version of healing that makes you always joyful or fully present from this moment on. And yet, I think we subconsciously keep chasing that. We keep imagining that this permanent ease is just around the corner. That if we're doing the work right, that life will finally get simple. So when an old pattern resurfaces or we revisit a cycle we thought we transcended, if we're shooting for this notion of permanent ease, of relieving ourselves of the struggle of living, it can be really disheartening to find ourselves repeating an old pattern. We start to believe in that moment that something's wrong, that the work we did didn't work, or that maybe we don't work. And I've seen people become afraid to try again, afraid to enter into healing again because the presence of struggle feels like failure. So I want to say this clearly. There is no final state. There's no finish line. There's no complete version of you while you still live and breathe. And I think too many people live life waiting for change, believing that once change happens, everything will get better. But healing isn't linear, and growth isn't tidy, and that doesn't have to be disheartening. Because maybe the only thing we can count on in life is this, that it will end one day. And from that, we learn that life is a practice of making peace with change, so that all the little deaths of identity and ego and control, falling in love and failing in love and letting yourself be seen, opening up to grief, all those forms of death can become ecstatic. They can become a part of your journey. They can bring you into a deeper intimacy with life. But only if you stop chasing a destination. So in today's episode, we're going to explore exactly that, where our fixation on the finish line might be keeping us from the very power and expansion and presence we long for. And I'm going to offer a simple reframe that can help you return to what matters right now. Stay with me. This is Reclaiming the Gentle Man. I'm Dave Lashansky. There is something beautiful about the idea of a North Star, a constant guide. It is bright in the sky, and it is also utterly unreachable. You don't chase your North Star. You use it to navigate. It is impossible to confuse it with the destination, and it remains consistent even as the sky and the earth change. Because in life and in love, we don't need to have it all figured out in order to move forward, to move towards something. But we do need to have a sense of where we're headed. We do need to choose. We need a direction to place our energy and focus our intention. We need a place that pulls us forward even when things get hard. Actually, especially when things get hard. And I think one of the great sicknesses we're experiencing in our modern time is not just burnout or overwhelm, it's directionlessness. It's this feeling of futility that we, as human beings with consciousness, somehow spend so much of our lives feeling powerless without ever even tapping into a fraction of what we're capable of. So many of us feel like there is no point in trying and endeavoring to create change in our lives or in the world because the system is too broken, because there's too much pain there, because the odds are too stacked against us. Which, granted, far too often is heartbreakingly true. But it is not a reason to live without direction. Because when we are not clear about what matters to us, about what we are striving for in this life, our power to initiate the justice and the change and the goodness we want to bring about in the world, right? This power that is innate to us because we are conscious beings with life inside of us, that power begins to fade. We go numb to the beauty around us. We become disconnected from each other because we are disconnected from our sense of purpose and clarity, from our sense of where it is we want to go. We become unplugged from presence. And too often, we think that the antidote to our ennui, right, our collective directionlessness, is achievement, is meeting the needs of our ego to fulfill an identity that makes us feel valuable, instead of embracing a more generous path of love and self-acceptance and acceptance of one another. Too often, we are waiting for permission from other people to step forward, to step into our power. And too often, because of that, we choose to accept only paths that are sanctioned, that are allowed by other people. Even if we, in our heart of hearts, don't really want to move toward that path, don't want to move in that direction. So the purpose of this episode is really to help you reconnect and reframe how you hold your own internal compass. And in doing so, to recognize how unfathomably powerful you really are. So let's keep going. I want to come back to this concept of the North Star, right? So let's say we have a general sense of one. And I'll give you a general sense of one that you're welcome to use and run with. Please go for it. It is a foundational element to my work and my being, and I want you to use it if it rings true to you. Okay? Here's your beginning point. Here's a North Star you can play with for this episode. A North Star could be simply to become a more present and connected and loving human. Now, sometimes this North Star may blur. It could become obscured. It could feel totally inaccessible in your life sometimes. It could feel hollow to you sometimes in your intimate relationships when things don't feel good, when stress is bubbling up, when things are becoming overwhelming. And so in those moments, what do? How do we accept what feels like a directionlessness of that moment? How do we navigate what feels like a changing path? How do we learn to be in that inquiry? That is a powerful and a good question, and one that is not a destination, but in itself a powerful compass, right? When we feel like we don't have access to ourselves, when we feel like this idea of presence and connection and lovingness, especially when we feel like we need it most and it's inaccessible, how do we be in the inquiry of what is happening? How do we be in the inquiry of navigating that moment? How do we navigate love when the North Star feels clouded over, feels inaccessible. Now, if you know me, if you've worked with me at all, you'll know that I would invite you probably to remember the power of stillness in that moment, to find courage to look within, to turn over rocks that maybe feel scary to turn over, to call on your community and your therapists and your coaches and your resources, your mentors, the people who can hold loving and potent and sacred space for you to be in that inquiry, and to wait for the shape of that path to reveal itself again. This is a practice that transcends the destination that you think is going to make everything feel better. Because often when we find ourselves lost, unable to locate where that North Star is, we look for anything that will make us feel better. Oftentimes it's scrolling on our phone, binge eating, alcohol, drugs, video games, consumption, whatever it is that helps you disconnect from that feeling of being lost, from that feeling of directionlessness, rudderlessness, being out in the ocean and not knowing where you are. It is terrifying. And many of us spend a lot of our lives numbing away that fear instead of sitting with it, instead of calling on our inner strength and our outer resources to find stillness in it. Learning to be in the inquiry when our North Star is invisible to us is in and of itself its own North Star. Sometimes a North Star is a question that brings us back to ourselves, to a path that feels right to us, that helps us explore what that means in this moment right now, even if it's different than what it meant yesterday. And sometimes accessing our North Star, sometimes clarifying for ourselves where it actually exists for us, on what horizon it really lives, requires us to look at our trauma so that we can better understand how it is shaping our path. Sometimes looking at our trauma shows us what it is that makes us feel like we don't have the power to make change in our lives. But again, this practice is not about transcending the struggle once and for all and finally being done and moving through things. It is to learn to move through it with more grace, to learn about ourselves, to embrace the change and the growth that we're being called into, and acknowledge the parts of us that exist whether we like it or not. And all of this is so that we can show up to life with more openness and receptivity, and in doing so, expanding our capacity for love. There's another good North Star, by the way. Because the truth is that we become so attached to our destinations of once this is healed, then I'll get what I want. Of once I find my person, then I'll be free to XYZ. Then I'll feel the love I've been craving. Of once I relieve myself of this debt, then finally I'll feel free. Then finally I'll feel rich. Then finally I'll feel like I can do whatever it is that I want to do. Because when we use a destination instead of a compass, when we use a destination instead of a North Star, we start to believe that the destination will make us feel better, will make everything better, that the destination will create the change in our life that we're really craving. But the truth is that it won't, and it can't. Our tendency to rely on a destination that will make us feel better, to strive for a destination that will change everything, that will fix us, is a fallacy that we tell ourselves. And the reason we do it is that it helps us stay in what's comfortable. It stops us from growing out of what we know, from growing into something new and different and scary and out of our control. And what makes life most hard, most often, is not actually our circumstances, but our resistance to changing them. The clenching, the grasping, the refusal to let go of the thing that makes us feel safe and good. The unconscious ways we self-sabotage and keep our deeper desires hidden and locked away in shame. We want the growth, but we don't want the tiny death of the present version of us that precedes it. We want connection, but not the vulnerability that it demands. And most of all, most of us want love, but not the mirror it holds up. But here's the thing. The moment we stop fighting the change we know we need to make, the moment we let things shift, we sit in the discomfort and allow it to wash over us and allow emotion to move through us. And the more we take responsibility for how that shows up for us, for what that compels us to do, the more we are accountable for the choices we make, the more we soften, the more we feel free, and the more power we gain access to inside of ourselves. Because instead of resisting what is the reality of what is inside of us, when we make peace with reality, with who we are, with what exists, with how we've acted, with what we've felt, with what we're feeling in the moment, and become sensitive and responsible for those things, we open up whole new worlds, whole new universes of peace and presence and drive and clarity and a sense of purpose and direction. And for so many of us, we are giving this power away to a destination, to an external circumstance that once we realize, once we achieve, once we gain, once we attain, will give us this power, will give us this clarity. And so how do we learn what it is that we're giving this power to? How do we learn if we're operating from this pursuit of a destination instead of a really valuable North Star? In other words, how do we uncover the ways that we're holding ourselves back? And how do we see the ways that we're attached to a destination and distracting ourselves from the real compass that will take us where we actually want to go, that will help us create the world that we're actually here to help create? I have a practice for you, and it comes from my teacher. Alyssa Nobriga talks about this practice. It's called insourcing. And it's one of the most important tools in recognizing the inner blocks that are keeping us small or distracted. The deal with insourcing is that it's about reclaiming the power that we've placed outside of ourselves. That belief that we need something out there to feel better or to feel more whole or to feel like something is accessible to us. So let's say you are someone who feels disconnected and lonely. Outsourcing says, I need a partner to fix that. Insourcing invites you to feel into the experience you imagine that having a partner will give you. In insourcing, you practice visualizing yourself and feeling what happens inside of you if you had that relationship, and allowing yourself the felt experience that you think only exists by changing your outer circumstances. When you visualize yourself with that partner, what happens for you? What opens up for you? And you will see in that practice that you have the power to give yourself the thing that you think you want. And this is a practice of believing in your own power, and practicing expanding the healing depths of your imagination. Because when you practice insourcing, you are the one that limits its effectiveness. You are the one that controls how powerful, how potent, and how valuable the experience is. And most people, and I find in my work, most men have a really hard time with this because we convince ourselves that if I'm just imagining it, it's just imagined. We convince ourselves that if I can just insource this, then it can't be all that valuable. But think about that. What if we let it be valuable? What if you allowed that experience to move you into a place, into a sense, into a felt experience of your power? And what if that felt experience of your power was infinitely more potent than you imagine it to be right now, thinking this through? This is a practice of believing in your own power and in receiving the healing waters of your imagination. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say you want financial freedom. This is a big one. Instead of waiting for your debt to be paid off to feel free, instead of waiting to finally get that big check to win the lottery, insourcing invites you to feel the freedom available to you right now. Insourcing invites you to feel the freedom you would feel if that debt were zero. If that bank account balance had more commas and zeros than it does right now. What is the freedom available to you then? And visualize it and embody it and feel into it. Bring yourself into a quiet place where you can really feel into it. Where you can be in the state that you think your goal is going to give you. And revel in it. And embrace it. And play in it. And offer this to yourself. Because otherwise, we are stuck chasing states of being. We are stuck chasing outcomes. Feeling sick and wanting. When really we can access the things we want internally. We can stop living in pursuit of that destination to feel better. We can stop resisting what is actually here and look in the mirror and see what that chasing of destinations is doing to us. And from that state, from the state of really being with our inner reality, the potent, powerful depths of it, we can recognize what we truly need to do, where we want to really go, and how we need to direct our energy to get to the place we need to get to. This isn't about convincing you that you don't need a partner. This isn't about convincing you that you don't need to be financially responsible. But it is about recognizing what state you are pursuing those things in. And when you are doing it from a state of not needing, of not suffering, of not wanting, you begin to magnetize more of what you want. This is the power of a potent North Star. It puts you in a position, it gives you access to a state where you can magnetize those things, where you can exert more of your power, your grounded, present, potent power in the world in pursuit of what is really aligned with where you really want to go. It expands your horizons of what's possible, and it brings what you really want into you. Imagine what would happen if more of us believed that we had the power to affect change in our lives, change in the world. And imagine if we all understood that that power to affect change were directly proportional to the power we own inside of ourselves. The power that we grant to our love and our wonder and our imagination. How much more patient and caring do you think we would be? How much less addiction and suffering might we see? Because I see great people, I see powerful, beautiful people give up. Imagine that they are powerless because the external outcomes they are seeking aren't coming to fruition. I'm not saying you cannot grieve when you do not reach your goals. I'm not saying you can't be sad that things aren't going your way. No. But I am saying there is power to recognizing what energy you're operating from when you believe you're trying to make change. That's what this is about. And I think the things that make us turn to what is making us really sick, our addiction to news and current events, our addiction to social media, our addiction to cruelty to ourselves and one another, might resolve a little faster. Because the truth is that we are so much more powerful than we know. And when we direct that power toward not chasing a finish line, but recognizing and living in pursuit of a North Star, we become the forces of nature we're meant to be. And we magnetize the love that we really dream of. And we open into our most full and most fulfilling presence. We invite more meaning into our life and our pursuits. And we stop getting distracted by destinations that only disappoint us, that derail us from our higher purpose here. So don't wait for it to get easy. Don't wait to be healed. Don't wait to arrive there. Begin now. Feel the thing you're craving now. Insource it and begin with stillness to access your presence. And begin by asking the question, what am I hoping that some future achievement will give me? And how can I access even just a drop of that right here, right now? Thank you for listening to this episode of Reclaiming the Gentleman. I am so excited that in the next week or two, the waitlist for the 21-day journey will be open. We are revamping this offering, and it is going to be so much more potent. There is so much more beautiful, important foundational work that is being plugged into this. And so much more, I think, actionable daily activities for you to practice when you join this next offering of Reclaiming the Gentleman, the 21-day journey. I'm so excited for this. I can't wait. I will let you know as soon as you can sign up. But for now, you can go to davelashansky.com. Better yet, send it to a friend, sign your friends up. If you're listening to this and you have a man who you love in your life, sign him up. This is something that I truly believe pretty much any man could benefit from. These are beautiful, reflective practices, not to give you the relationship that I have, but to help you navigate the relationship that you have with more presence, more fullness, more of you. I am so excited to share this journey with the men who are already signing up. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of my podcast production company, David Benjamin Sound, LLC. You can join a free podcasting seminar to help you understand the value of podcasting at davidbenjaminsound.com. We have a free workshop that we host every month to help entrepreneurs, to help businesses, to help people with a brand and a mission use podcasting to serve them. This has been one of my favorite practices in my life since starting it. And I'm just so happy to be on this journey with you. So thanks for coming along. I'll be back in 1 week with another episode. Until then, please write in with your questions, with your comments. Please share this show with a friend and leave a rating wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It helps the show. Thank you for your time. See you in a week.